As a boy, Marcos spent his life bullying anyone who didn't come from a wealthy family. Anyone who didn't live in a mansion became a target, and he made their lives a living hell. One of his victims was Ella, a girl from a poor family in his grade. Blinded by pride, Marcos never stopped to see that their circumstances were not their fault. Day after day, he made Ella's life unbearable. She couldn't fight back. Each time he mocked her, her voice would vanish somewhere between her chest and her throat. She would just stand there, hands clenched, eyes fixed on the ground, pretending his words didn't hurt, even as they carved deep into her heart. The laughter, the whispers, the way everyone watched but never stepped in, it all made Ella feel invisible, small, and completely alone. Every day, she went home carrying wounds no one could see. She told herself to endure, to survive, because she had no other choice. Crying felt useless, and speaking up felt impossible. So, she learned silence. This continued, day after day, until one moment changed everything. One afternoon, Marcos received devastating news from home. His father had died in a car accident while on a business trip. In an instant, his entire world shattered. His mother fell into a deep mental depression after the loss, and Marcos became her only source of comfort. She refused to let anyone else help her or even touch her, only her son. The weight of it all became overwhelming. He had to be strong for his mother, yet no one was there for him. His friends had no idea what he was going through, and afraid of damaging his reputation, Marcos chose to suffer in silence. Gradually, he stopped bullying others. For the first time, he understood that their circumstances were never their fault, just as it wasn't his fault that his own life had been turned upside down overnight. Weeks passed, and Marcos struggled just to hold himself together until his mother finally died. Whatever was left of his world shattered completely. A funeral was held, but as Marcos stood beside her grave, he realized that none of his friends had come to support him. He was alone. The next day at school, the stares began. Everyone knew the secrets he had tried so hard to hide. They knew about his mother's depression, about how she had died just as his father had. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that the very friends who once stood beside him now turned against him. They mocked him, calling him a psychopath, a freak. They whispered, then shouted, that he was the reason his parents were dead. Overnight, Marcos went from being the popular boy who tormented others to the one being tormented. The halls that once echoed with his confidence now felt hostile and cold. Crushed by shame and betrayal, he withdrew from everyone. From that moment on, Marcos isolated himself. Through the rest of high school, he lived in silence, unseen and untouched, carrying the weight of a loneliness he had once inflicted on others. Years passed, and Marcos was still alone. He lived in his vast mansion in complete isolation, haunted by memories he could never escape. Eventually, all hope drained from him, and he decided to erase the past entirely. He placed an ad to hire someone to clear out everything that tied him to his former life. To his surprise, a woman arrived for the job. He briefly wondered why someone like her would take such work, but he didn't care. He just wanted the past gone. So he hired her without a second thought. The woman was Ella, but he didn't recognize her. Time had changed her. After everything that happened in high school, Ella's father landed a major contract that transformed their lives overnight. Wealth followed, and with it came the world Marcos had once mocked her for not belonging to. She finally lived the life he believed she never deserved. But while her surroundings changed, her memories did not. Ella had spent years carrying the weight of what Marcos had done to her, quietly shaping her plans, imagining the moment she would face him again. And now, standing inside his mansion, that moment had finally arrived. When Ella arrived, she didn't see the boy who once tormented her. She saw a broken, shattered man. His bitterness clung to him, heavy and visible, and his sadness filled the rooms like a shadow. For a brief moment, her heart ached for him. She felt sorry that he had endured so much alone, with no one standing beside him when his world collapsed. The realization unsettled her, blurring the sharp edge of the resentment she had carried for years. Pushing those feelings aside, Ella began the work she was hired to do. She moved through the mansion, sorting through pieces of Marcos's past, objects once filled with pride, now emptied of meaning. Carefully, she gathered them, setting them aside for donation, unaware that each item would soon force them both to confront what they had become. Marcos was amazed by how seriously Ella took the job. She was devoted to it. Every day, he watched her quietly clear out the old halls and forgotten rooms, doing her work with a lightness that surprised him. There was a gentle happiness in the way she moved, as if the weight of the past did not cling to her the way it clung to him. One afternoon, while sorting through a bag she had set aside, Marcos came across a picture. It was worn at the edges, almost forgotten. His attention was drawn to it immediately because the little boy in the picture was unmistakably him. Memories rushed back, of a time before cruelty, before pride. Once, they had been close. But everything changed when Marcos found new friends and a new version of himself to impress. Guilt burned through him. He couldn't understand why, after everything he had done to her, she would return to his life like this, quiet, kind, and unchanged in the ways that mattered. The anger he felt had nowhere to go, so it turned outward. He confronted her and told her never to come back. His words were sharp, his voice cruel, not because he hated her, but because he hated himself. He didn't want her near someone like him. Ella rushed home in tears, her chest heavy with a sadness she thought she had outgrown. Almost immediately, regret washed over Marcos. Something inside him urged him to apologize, so he followed her at a distance until he reached her home. What he saw stunned him: a warm house, a family that loved her, laughter spilling through open windows. Wealth surrounded them, yet it was never flaunted. Ella was simply happy. Watching from afar, Marcos realized something painfully clear. She had built a life full of love, while he had been living among ghosts. And since he had already sent her away, an apology felt useless. So he turned back, carrying his guilt with him, and returned to the empty mansion alone. The next day, to Marcos's surprise, Ella returned. She stood before him, steady and unafraid. "You don't get to scare me anymore," she said, her voice firm despite the tightness in her chest. Marcos looked up, startled. "Ella." "No," she cut in. "For years, your words lived in my head. Every insult, every laugh. Even when my life changed, they stayed. I won't let that happen anymore." He swallowed. "Then why are you here?" "Because I needed to say this to your face," she replied. "I planned to hurt you. I planned revenge. I thought it would heal me." Silence stretched between them. "But it won't," she continued softly. "You're already in pain. Hurting you won't give me peace." Marcos's voice broke. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," Ella said, "but I give it anyway." She turned to leave. "Wait." She felt his hand tremble as it caught her wrist. When she turned back, Marcos was on his knees. "I'm sorry," he said, tears slipping free. "For everything. I was cruel because I was empty. I didn't know how else to exist." Ella knelt too, meeting his eyes. "Then learn." After they had resolved everything between them, Ella continued to return to the mansion, determined to finish the job she had started. Gradually, she and Marcos began to reconnect as he helped her, carrying heavy boxes, bringing her lunch, and quietly looking after her in small, thoughtful ways. Their friendship didn't feel like something new. It felt like something rediscovered. They spoke late into the nights, about grief, about guilt, about the versions of themselves they wished they could erase. Through those quiet conversations, she helped him find his way through the darkness, standing beside him until the weight no longer felt unbearable. Marcos began to laugh again, softly at first, as if afraid the sound didn't belong to him anymore. Ella noticed the way he listened now, really listened, as if every word mattered. Sometimes their hands brushed while sorting through old boxes. Sometimes they lingered too long in silence. Neither of them named it, but something gentle grew between them, not built on apology or pity, but on understanding. Love didn't arrive loudly. It arrived carefully. The last box was empty. Ella taped it shut and set it beside the door. Sunlight streamed through the mansion windows for the first time in years, dust floating like quiet stars in the air. Marcos stood still, then took a deep breath. "It doesn't feel so heavy anymore," he said. Ella smiled. "That's because you finally let go." Together, they stepped outside. Marcos turned back once, then closed the door behind him, not as an ending, but as a promise. Somewhere between forgiveness and courage, two broken people had learned how to begin again. The end. Keep watching and subscribe for more.